So here we have a representation of eternity, millions of years. So what they're saying here is the ancient Egyptian god of millions of years. To indicate his great age, the god is depicted as old and fat. He also holds a notched stick representing the countless years of eternity. His left hand is stretched out to protect an eye that symbolises the sun on its nightly passage through the waters of the underworld. So having lived long, one becomes, well, fat. But obviously it's fat to show that one has lived well and lived fully a full life. We don't have to become fat as we get older and live forever. But I find it interesting that the sun here is represented as an eye going through the underworld, which it does at night. But it is the eye that sees, the all-knowing eye. It is the sunlight that we are attaining towards. But I often see pictures of Thoth holding the rod that's here with the notches on, which again is a way of counting the days. And the year that I'm making this film in is a leap year, so I've got to add an extra notch for this year. So there are also 3 lesser gods in the Egyptian pantheon. 3 lesser gods that deal with time. There's a little set of writing to go with this, which goes, "They who circle daily on his, the sun god's path, as living souls of the gods, they who serve the sun god as messengers in the cities and countries." And these cities and countries that they are messengers to, one of these gods brought all the, let's say, negative forces such as storms and sickness, death. Another of these time gods brought life, gave life. And the third time god united both these opposites, representing the soul of the Godhead. So we need to watch out for the 3 lower gods of time. Though I say lower gods, that's because they weren't as well known as we know of most of the Egyptian pantheon. Can't even find their names, actually. And this is a depiction of a carving of a Hindu god of time. And this Hindu god of time is also known as the Black One, which I find quite interesting that they've used the colour black, known him as the Black One, for time eats everything. It is the darkness that befalls all of us. Time, tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. And I wanted to remind you of what Augustine said about time. And he said that the mind has 3 functions: expectation for the future, attention for the present, memory for the past. The great times, like the sacred time, the time of eternity, where everything is happening all at once, where our subjective time is more of a linear time, where everything follows one after another. We are trying to take ourselves into the sacred time, the great time, which is where I think our essence lives. Time is of the essence. It's quite an interesting saying, that, isn't it? I normally hear it told in old movies or old stories, but time is of the essence. Is time on our side? Gurdjieff always used to give me the feeling that time was not on our side. But if time is of the essence, then do we break time so that we can reach our essence? Or is our essence working on a different form of time? Time is short, time is of the essence, time is tick-tocking away. And we waste so much time by putting things off. You know, the old disease of tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow when we really need to do it today, for time is of the essence. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. So I've got a picture of Ouspensky here. Obviously he was looking into time, the 4th dimension, which he relates to time. I've always found that quite hard to get my head around about the 4th dimension and what time is. But his book's very interesting, obviously, on this kind of thing. He was trying to understand what time is. And the reason I kind of got intrigued with time from a young age was I was very interested in time travel and whether it was possible, whether we can do it. Can we time travel to other realms or back and forth in our own world to other times? You know, I wanted to go and meet or see historical events. And there are various stories of Gurdjieff discussing this kind of thing. He took J.G. Bennett back to, well, to the Last Supper of the Christ time. But Bennett describes it as they weren't actually there physically. It was like they went in their astral or their etheric bodies. So I'm wondering if time travel now is not through a physical way, but through the etheric realms or perhaps the astral realms. Of course, here we've got Gurdjieff drawing for his institution: to know, to understand, to be. Mr. Gurdjieff himself said that time is the unique, subjective, and time is kind of subjective, isn't it? How time goes for you is different to how I perceive it. And obviously there's the old adage of, when you're having fun, time goes fast, and when you're bored and fed up, time goes slowly, normally when people are at work. But Gurdjieff was also talking about the two types of time. There is our subjective time, and then of course there's the great time, the eternal time, the time that comes down from the Sun Absolute, the time that is endless, where our time on this earth is limited because we are living a subjective life. And Gurdjieff talks about the merciless hierarchs. This was what caused the whole, well, it was because of the merciless hierarchs, time coming and eating upon the heavens of his endlessness, the home of his endlessness, that he created the universe so that time could instead go and start eating the universe and save his own realm. So tick-tock goes the time, the merciless hierarchs. Is it our enemy, or can we use it to our advantage? Can we outdo time? Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. From a personal point of view, I am concerned about how much time I wasted whilst I was asleep in my life. And I don't want to waste time now, so I try to get on and do the work and read what I need to read and develop myself, yet at the same time I must also remember that I must enjoy my life and be awake in it and have some fun. Most people who are kind of asleep, I suppose, not studying the esoteric path, they're looking for a way to pass time, and they're also looking for a way to make past times, as in doing what they want, going for their hobbies, going to the pub, such like. Where we in the Gurdjieff work are looking for ways to make use of time to do what we need, to do the work in time, live in time, as Maurice Nicoll would say. Now I'm going to quote a little bit from J.B. Priestley's book on time, where he discusses Ouspensky. Now I'd always thought Ouspensky's theory of recurrence was the same as Nietzsche's, but J.B. Priestley says not, and I thought it'd be easier just to quote what Priestley said than me try and give my blubbering. So this is J.B. Priestley, quote, Ouspensky's theory of eternal recurrence must not be confused with the great circle or year of the ancient Greeks. And it has nothing to do with Nietzsche's idea of recurrence, which Ouspensky in a footnote sharply and rightly rejects. Nietzsche argued that the illimitable resources of the universe must produce other earths exactly like this one, and that then the same causes will make everything recur. But this is not true, because the odds against exact repetition will multiply faster than the chances of it. Ouspensky quotes examples of Western thought and feeling that suggests the idea of recurrence, but they are not impressive. After all, the déjà vu effect is fairly common, and as we have seen, there are explanations of it that do not involve recurrence. Ouspensky's theory of eternal recurrence is really an extension, and in my opinion, J.B. Priestley's, by no means a necessary one, of his idea of three-dimensional time explained in a previous chapter of his, but also explained in the book A New Model of the Universe. To present this idea, I shall have to quote his text, as I shall also have to do when we come to this theory of recurrence. It is this: though I consider Ouspensky to have been a man of considerable intellect, who produced genuinely original ideas of some value, and not at all the charlatan many scientists might imagine him to be, I think we're entitled to entertain some suspicion of his style and manner. A good scientist can be allowed a style and manner of dogmatic certainty, because he will offer proofs of what he is stating. Where he is uncertain, because no proofs are to hand, he will make plain his uncertainty. So now he quotes Ouspensky. This is Ouspensky's words. The three-dimensionality of time is completely analogous to the three-dimensionality of space. We do not measure space by cubes, we measure it linearly in different directions, and we do exactly the same with time, although in time we can measure only two coordinates out of three, namely the duration and the velocity. The direction of time is not for us a quantity, but an absolute condition. Sorry, I mucked that up, let me say that again. Namely, the duration and the velocity, the direction of time is not for us a quantity, but an absolute condition. Another difference is that in the case of space, we realise that we are dealing with a three-dimensional continuum, whereas in the case of time, we do not realise it. But, as has been said already, if we attempt to unite the three coordinates of time into one whole, we shall obtain a spiral. And I've spoken to various people about Ouspensky and his views of time, and I was also had it explained to me of what Rodney Collin was saying about time, that time is a spiral. We're not looking at two lines going along into the future. It's spiraling, they were showing me in demonstrations, as an upward movement. And I find that all quite interesting, that time is going round in a spiral. We'll now continue with some Ouspensky quotes. The three dimensions of time can be regarded as the continuation of the dimensions of space, i.e. as the fourth, the fifth and sixth dimensions of space. A six-dimensional space is undoubtedly a Euclidean continuum, but of properties and forms totally incomprehensible to us. The six-dimensional form of a body is inconceivable for us, and if we were able to apprehend it with our senses, we should undoubtedly see and feel it as three-dimensional. Time is the boundary of our senses. Six-dimensional space is reality, the world as it is. This reality we perceive only through the slit of our senses, touch and vision, and define as three-dimensional space, ascribing to it Euclidean properties. Every six-dimensional body becomes for us a three-dimensional body existing in time, and the properties of the fifth and sixth dimensions remain for us imperceptible. Ouspensky argues that eternity demands recurrence, and he says, quote, "This means that if a man was born in 1877 and died in 1912, then having died, he finds himself again in 1877 and must live the same life all over again. In dying, in completing the circle of life, he enters the same life from the other end. He is born again in the same town, in the same street, with the same parents, in the same year and on the same day. He will have the same brothers and sisters, the same uncles and aunts, the same toys, the same kittens, the same friends, the same women. He will make the same mistakes, laugh and cry in the same way, rejoice and suffer in the same way. And when the time comes, he will die in exactly the same way as he did before. And, again, at the moment of his death, it will be as though all the clocks were put back to 7:35 a.m. on the 2nd of September 1877, and from this moment started again with their usual movement. So do we want to live our lives over and over again? These are our opportunities to try and change ourselves, to break time. As Gurdjieff says, we need to break our astrological chart, break the astrology, change the stars, change ourselves. And then Maurice Nicole reminds us, quote, "It is difficult to reconcile oneself to the view that a single life determines our lot. We seem to come toward the end of our life just when we begin to get some insight. The illusion of passing time makes us think that we cannot change the past and that it is not worthwhile trying to change anything now. We may just begin to realise that we were never taught anything about how we had to live life or about what we really had to do. We probably thought that education taught us how to live, and after a long period of perplexity begin to realise that we had to find out things for ourselves. Then it may seem too late. end quote. Which is why we need to work upon ourselves now. We need to do this work now. We need to show ourselves that we can wake up to what's really real and what time really is and how much time we have left to develop ourselves and break the cycle and get off this rat race life and move on to the next stage. And he reminds us also, Maurice Nicoll, that we should continue our lives and try and remember what it's about. And he says, quote, "But why should we confine our idea of the future only to a disembodied state which many of us find difficulty in accepting? Remember that we do not live only in this little visible moment, but in a world extended in every direction, visible and invisible," end quote. And this is one of the important things about doing this kind of work. We need to remember that it's not just this world, there's other worlds and other worlds to go to. And then Sophia Well-Beloved reminds us that time is relative to us when we're living in a subjective sense. And she writes about Gurdjieff saying, quote, "In relation to lifespan, Gurdjieff said that each centre has its allotted time to run, but that time exists only internally and is measured by associations. Life can be prolonged by spending the energy of the centres slowly and economically. Learn to think consciously. This produces economy in the expenditure of energy. Don't dream. Don't daydream away your life. Daydreaming is a waste of energy."